It's good to be back because bloody hell, it feels like forever. And football's gone mental. It's gone absolutely mental. The title race, I don't know what's going on with it. Man United could win it. Everyone said Ollie out a month ago. Man United could win it. They were the best on the form table. They were the best over the last 5 games. I mean, that's insane. So welcome back to Just Another Football Podcast. Sorry for the Christmas delay. I'd like to welcome my co-host Harry.
Hi mate, good to be back.
Some things don't change, like Sheffield United losing. But first thing we're going to talk about is the winners of the Christmas break, or the Christmas period. And the first one, it's amazing what 3 wins can do, is Arsenal.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? That Christmas period.
Yeah. So my first question would be, what changed?
Okay, we started winning, which is always a good thing to change. The run we were on, you just couldn't see where the next win was coming from. I did always think that once we got one win, that we would our form wasn't going to continue to be as poor as it was. I didn't expect to win all the games over the Christmas period. I've got to be honest, but I didn't expect to lose them all either, like kind of the way we had been doing. When you have 3 games in a week, as difficult as it is to win them all, it's quite difficult also to lose them all. You're bound to sort of put probably one decent performance together to get a result. Now, as it was, we put 2 very good ones together and we sort of ground one out in between them. What's changed? I think the obvious thing to talk about would be the introduction of youth into the team.
Smith Rowe, he's so good. He's
been very good. He's been very good, and I'll talk about him a little bit. But just on that, it is youth. Don't get me wrong, it is youth, and it's the kind of the energy they bring and the tenacity they bring. And obviously, when you bring a young player into the team, they're more likely to play with someone with something to prove, because obviously they've not really played at that level, extensively before. Whereas when you have some of the other guys we've had in the team who keep producing poor performance after poor performance on a weekly basis, I'm not saying they're deliberately playing poorly. I don't think any footballer deliberately plays poorly.
He's talking to you, Willian.
Yeah, well, good God. Absolutely. But I don't think anyone does it deliberately. Like when I look at him, he doesn't look happy. He looks unhappy, but it's sort of it might be a sort of subconscious thing where you sort of, you tune out. You've got your last big contract at a sort of a top club. You're doing pretty well for yourself. And I don't know, like the sort of focus that was maybe there pre-getting that move. I know he was pretty good he's patchy. He's always been a patchy player, William, not to talk about him too much. But he's just an example of someone. But yeah, I think that those guys that come into the team, obviously there's that youth factor, but I also think that they are honestly players. When I look at Saka, who's obviously been playing and been a shining light for Arsenal. When I look at Martinelli, who's obviously really, really good last season, had his injury and he's come back and he's sort of picked up where he left off. Hopefully the injury to him isn't too serious as well. And then I look at Smith Rowe, who you just mentioned. Obviously they're all young players, but they're all also players that bring qualities that the team was dearth of. So Smith Rowe, who you just mentioned, he's very good at playing quickly, so he moves the ball at a good tempo, which we kind of lack, especially in central areas. He always looks to be progressive. It doesn't always come off for him. He's not perfect yet when he looks to play it around the corner. Obviously, there was that goal he scored at West Brom, which is the highest profile example where he just quickly one touch turns it around the corner and then makes the run off the ball. And they're the sort of things that he does that nobody else is doing for us at the moment in those areas. Saka obviously has that real quality to go by a man, which I also don't think we are massively blessed with at Arsenal. I think his close control and technical ability is excellent. And then you have the pressing, relentless nature of Martinelli, who, as a fullback, I mean, he must just be an absolute nightmare to play against, because for 75, 90 minutes, however long he's on there for, you're not getting a single second where he's not asking a question of you, whether it's closing you down, pressing you, going at you 1 versus 1. And these are just things that, when I look at the players who've been playing in those positions, they just haven't been offering those qualities.
A player that I think's improved a lot is Lacazette. Over that, he got 4 goals,
and that's absolutely right. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying with the qualities of those players. Lacazette looks a much better player with runners around him because what he is doing more and more. I don't think he was ever blessed with. I think when we signed Lacazette, we thought he was going to come and be this sort of ultra speedy striker that runs in behind and scores 30 goals a season. But what I think when I look at him and when I look at when he's played his best, so I think of the season we got to the Europa League final and he got player of the season that year. He didn't score 25, 30 goals. He chipped in with maybe between 15 and 20 in all comps, but what he did really well is his all-round play and the way he brought others into the game, like Aubameyang, who got 25 goals from the wing because of him. It's that his all-round play was really good. Now, this season, it hasn't been at that level, and it hasn't been at that level because we've not got bodies around him making runs off him, playing off him, using him as a sort of a link player. And I don't think he's exceptional at it, but I think when he's playing his best, that's what he offers us that nobody else does. And it's certainly what he's done in recent weeks. He's really stepped up. He's been scoring goals. He's got 4 in the last 3 games, 5 in the last 4 in all comps. And yeah, I mean, even the other day, just to touch on the FA Cup, we looked a much better outfit when he came on, and the first goal comes from him flicking it on. I don't think we score that goal without him in that area. So I think he's been really good as well.
I think when the conversation comes around Lacazette and Aubameyang, for the last couple of years, it's been like, who do we sell? And I've always been an advocate for selling Aubameyang over Lacazette because I think Lacazette is much easier to build around a team, whereas Aubameyang, I feel like, first of all, he's a couple of years older, I think. I know Lacazette.
He is a couple of years older, yeah.
And I worry that you talked about last contract, Aubameyang's falling into that. He's getting into good areas, he's just missing chances, which happens. But then he's only got 3 goals this year. So
yeah, it's a difficult one. Just to talk about him quickly, I was sort of encouraged and discouraged at the same time by those 3 results. Obviously, he didn't play against Chelsea. He played against Brighton and he played at West Brom, and he didn't score any. He didn't score any of the goals, and we scored 8 goals in a week: 3 against Chelsea, 1 against Brighton, and 4 at West Brom. What I like about that, I think we need him scoring. I think Arsenal at their best will have him scoring near enough most games. But at the same time, last season, we were heavily, heavily reliant on his goals in the domestic campaign, in the FA Cup, in the run to the final. Obviously, 2 really good performances at Wembley, but he scored all the goals, and at least 2 of them were really good individual efforts from him. And it's sort of like, I like the fact that we're not as reliant on him scoring goals at the moment, and that could all change. I think a few injuries, what the FA Cup game at the weekend showed me is we have really good players in our first team, or who offer really good qualities. They're still young, they're still raw, but if you take them out the team, I don't think the guys that are stepping in for them offer the same qualities, and therefore we're able to play the same way. And so I'm sort of looking at it and I'm thinking it's really good in the sense that we're scoring goals without Aubameyang, but I think we need him scoring more than he is as well.
I think that because you gave him that contract. I think if you didn't give him that contract, you can say we can move on from Aubameyang now, and then from that you can go and get the next Aubameyang or the next attacking forward that you need. The issue is with that massive contract you've given him is it locks him in for the next 3 years. Same with Willian.
And anyway, and look, I think we'll get more out of him. I really do. I think he's a better player than this. I don't see any signs of like physical decline in him. I don't think it's that. I think that he's not been getting many chances because of the way we've been playing. And I think, the only the last 2-3 games have you kind of seen us play a bit more expansively and create more chances. And he's been missing them. It's kind of whether that continues for the next couple of months. If we continue to play as well as we did in the 3 games we talked about, that's when you get concerned. It might, honestly, it might just be a case of, like you said, like he got the contract and it's a subconscious thing, like I mentioned with Willian. I don't think Aubameyang, I don't think he's a mercenary. I don't think he was playing for the contract deliberately and then thinking I'm going to get that contract, then I'm going to down tools because I've got my last big move, I've got my last big payday. But it might just be a thing when footballers have contracts due, a contractual decision due, they do typically play better just because they're probably a bit more on it. Maybe mentally, you're sort of more finely tuned in with your game.
You're playing for your career.
You're just sharper. You're playing for it. You're playing for your future.
And what happens is
he hasn't got that burden now.
Through lots of sports, cricket's the same, football's the same. When you go through the youth thing, it's about playing for your next jump up. So if you're under 11s and you want to make it to an under 12s role next year, and if you're in an academy, you're playing for that next year, and it's all the way up. And so footballers' minds are built to be like, I've got to play my way into that, and I've got to play my way into the into that first team or into that next under 11s or under 17s team, or next under 23s role. Yeah, and they think the same with contracts. I think Junior Hoylett's a sucker for it. A year left, 10 games, he becomes amazing, gets a new contract, and he's shit again. I just think footballers' brains are built that way of just flicking it on when they need to, and so if it's like they see,
I agree.
They see like they see a scout at a game, or they just know they have to be on it. So
that's right. The only thing I would mention on that is you talked about Lacazette, and I don't think Lacazette's going to get a new contract. I'd be very surprised. He's coming up. I think he's 30 now, so I'd be surprised if they give him another big payday.
I wouldn't give him a contract.
I don't think they will. I think it's unlikely. You can see as well when the difference in narrative between when Arteta was asked about Aubameyang's contract last season, and I know it's a bit different in the sense that he only had a year left. Lacazette's got 18 months or whatever, but I think there's a difference in the way they're talking about it, because he was very keen to kind of reassert that we really need Aubameyang, we need him to stay. When he's been asked about Lacazette, it's we'll see at the end of the season. The only thing I'd say about Lacazette is if you're talking about contracts, he kind of knows that, he's playing for a contract, even if we don't think he's going to get it. I think his performances are going up because of those around him. Don't get me wrong, there's a change there. But also, is it that he's more on his game because he knows there's a big decision coming? Yeah, you could make that argument. But yeah, I think just to conclude on Arsenal, it's promising. Our next 2 home games are very winnable games against Palace and Newcastle. You've got to expect to win those games. And then you can look at it and say, we've won 5 games in a row. No one in the league all season's won 5 games in a row at any point. That's really promising. And you can build from there. You've got a couple more harder games against Southampton and Manchester United, but you're going into them with some form. You're not patchy like we've kind of been all season.
And you're going in knowing your best 11.
You are, and this is it's exactly that. I think you could more confidently say now at this point, because you've seen the template. You look at it and you think, okay, when Partey's fit, he'll come back in. When Gabriel's fit, he'll probably come back in. Although, just to mention, I think Pablo Mari's played really well while Gabriel's not been in the team, and I think he is a player that's kind of been maybe unfairly lumped in with someone like Willian, someone like Cedric, in terms of the deals that were done for these players because of their links to the agents. When he hadn't really played, he'd played a couple of games. He got a really bad injury just after lockdown, and then he's not played for 6 months.
Yeah, against Man City, and then David Luiz had a shocker after.
Yeah, it's one of those things where he didn't really do anything on the pitch to suggest that he was bad. He was bad. Yeah,
I think what it is David Luiz had a shocker, and so the defence in that day had a shocker. So that everyone goes, okay, Arsenal's defence had a shocker, and he was on it, but he wasn't on the pitch when most of the issues happened.
No, he wasn't. He went off injured. And actually, I think his record when we played in the Premier League is we've conceded 1 goal, the goal against Chelsea. So I think he's been solid, and I think he'll prove to be a good backup for Gabriel, even competition for him, because I think you're not going to play 2 left-footers, are you, in the defence? It's a weird one. You see teams playing 2 right-footers,
but you never play 2 left-footers,
but you never play 2 left-footers. I think with him, he's been really solid, but I think Gabriel comes back in, Partey comes back in. I think obviously someone like Tierney's a mainstay at left back and has been fantastic, really stepped up his game recently. And you can sort of see the template for the team, the sort of spine of it, and then you might change players here and there, but you can start to see a kind of structure to it building, and it'll be really interesting to see how they go over the next few weeks. But yeah, big winners from the Christmas fixtures, Arsenal, definitely.
The other big winners are Man United. Are they? Harry, tell me this: can they win the league? Well, they can, but can they? Because I think they won't.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, so Man United, there's lots of good things going. Bruno looks amazing. There's more to come from Greenwood. There's more to come from Rashford. There's more to come from Martial. But McTominay looks like a worldly box-to-box. Darren Fletcher, eat your heart out. Now he's going to be our coach, so it's fine. Player. And, Fred looks really good in those big games. Shaw is creating as many chances, if not, and more expected assists than Ben Chilwell right now. Do
you think he's as good as Chilwell, though?
Going forward, he is. Well, his numbers suggest he is. So
okay, but when you watch someone like Luke Shaw, we'll get on to Man United in a minute, but just because you mentioned him, when you watch him and you compare, look, I don't want to be unfair on the guy and just judge him by when I look at him and his physique. But when you compare him to some of the other left backs in the division, like Tierney, Robertson's the best. But I think then you look at sort of that next tier. I think someone like Reguilon, Digne, Tierney. Do you think he's capable of kind of providing the verticality and the sort of the creativity from left back that those players can?
His numbers are, and so that.
But do you think that's because he's got? Do you think the structure allows him to create, or do you think it's him? Because like when I watch Arsenal, for example, I don't watch Man United nearly as much. But when I watch Arsenal build their attacks with a left-sided bias. It's improved a little bit since we put Saka on the right. But a big part of that is because Tierney is really good down that side, and he can beat a man and he can put a good delivery in. When you look at someone like Luke Shaw, I'm not sure you could necessarily say the same thing in terms of they want to build attacks and he's getting loads of chances created because he's a really good outlet, and they're kind of getting the ball to him and letting him do with it what he will.
But he's Man United's the biggest creator this year for key passes, and when I watch him, I actually just go, this season it feels like the Shaw that we had at Southampton, and his numbers are, if not same, a little bit better. And a lot of the players that are left, I'm not sure if he's making those key passes. I only use Chilwell as an example because everyone thinks of him as a good creator. But then Chilwell takes set pieces as well, actually.
He does, yeah.
So so he's the third biggest creator in the team.
I think Luke Shaw does, actually. So he definitely takes some free kicks.
Does he? All right. But yeah. He's the third biggest creator behind Rashford and Bruno in that team. There probably is a left side bias because Rashford's on the left hand side as well. I think they can.
And Wan-Bissaka doesn't really go forward.
But so. I think that's his perfect role when he's just tackling and just winning the ball back. So
yeah.
So I like. I like Shaw because I feel like everyone's written him off. So
I think he's fine. I know I mentioned his physique there, but it's probably not accurate when people say, "Oh, he's fat, he can't run, he's too unfit." I'm sure he's fit. I don't know. I think there are some really good left backs in the league. I think less good right back, but there are some really good left backs in the league. I don't quite put him in that top tier.
Here's my question for you: if Chilwell is, what was he, 55 million? He's 23. Shaw is this season creating as much as operating as much defensively. Is a year older at 24. How much does he cost?
24, Luke Shaw.
He's 24. He's
older than that. I mean, it's probably because he's just been around for ages, right? Yeah, that's one thing he's got in his favour. He's younger than you'd probably think, right?
And he's still got time. And
he has got time. He has got time.
So I mean, if Man United fans,
I think he's a bit injury prone as well. He gets injured a few times during the season, which.
But
I know if you ask Man United fans as well, they're quite split on it. I think he's definitely better than the guy they brought in, the Tellez. I think he's better than him. But he's quite a divisive sort of player where you look at him and half the fan base think he's really good and half the fan base think that players like him in the sense that they're the problem, not in the sense that he's is a bad egg or he's a problem in the dressing room, but sort of like if you want to get to that next level, you can't do it with players like him. I think he's probably good enough to get them into where they are, like the Champions League. I just look at him as a player and I think you probably need a bit more from left back, but
yeah,
I mean, let's talk about Man United. We can discuss them a bit more.
If they beat Burnley, they go top.
If they beat, that's tomorrow. Yeah.
Bruno looks like the best player in the league right now. He's taking as many shots as Lewandowski is in the league right now. He's creating as many chances.
Where are those shots from? Because I know he likes to shoot from distance.
And expected goals per 90 of 0.57 is as good as a.
Is that with or without penalties?
That's with penalties.
Okay.
But
not to be obtuse, because I do think if you take the penalties away, he's still contributing goals. He's still contributing assists.
I can get it without penalties.
I think he's got more to offer to his game. So there's sort of been the debate at the moment: who's better, Bruno or Kevin De Bruyne? And I still think it's Kevin De Bruyne, even if Bruno's numbers are a bit better, because I think Kevin De Bruyne's security in possession and his decision making is better than Bruno's. I think with Bruno, he's obviously a creative player, he's a flair player. He still gives the ball away a hell of a lot during the game, and you accept that with your creative player that they're going to try things. It's not always going to come off. I do think with Bruno, he does it more, than you perhaps would want always. So I do think the games where he doesn't score and he doesn't assist, he is prone to having a really poor game because he'll give the ball away a lot and things won't come off for him. And I think with Man United, him doing that, they are not going to want him to change the way he plays, because if you think about the way they were playing before he came in, it was dearth of that risk-taking option. Nobody was doing it. Now you've got him doing it and you've got the players around him doing it a bit more because of him. And I think he's a really good character to have in the dressing room by all accounts, and the way he applies himself and his attitude towards the game is what you want. But I think his ceiling is even higher than what we're currently seeing, which is a scary prospect for rival fans and a really, enticing prospect for Manchester United fans. I just think for him to go to that next level, his numbers are really good in terms of what he's contributing. I just think his decision-making and execution it can be a bit patchy. Is the only criticism I would level at him. But he's a big part of why they are where they are. So it's very difficult to be overly critical.
So at this rate, I think I saw somewhere at this rate, the Premier League's predicted points to win it is 76.
Which is when you said to me before, do you think Man United can win the league? Or even when you just asked me just now, my answer to that would be, if it was going to get to the heights of what it has the last few seasons, which you might say, okay, but that's really high compared to relative points winning totals of seasons gone by. Man United aren't at that level. They're not going to get more than 85 points in a season. I don't think at this stage. I think they're too inconsistent. I think they're getting really good results. Over a 38-game season, the games they've been winning by 1 goal, you could easily draw or even lose them by 1 goal. And so you need to be more consistent in your performances. And I just look at them and I think if the title race was going to be that, I don't think they're in it. What it's turning out to be, and what you've just mentioned there, a lower points tally, it's hard to argue they aren't in it at the moment because they're getting results.
I'd also say that the games they've struggled with, so they've lost 3 games this season, 2 of them came in the first 3 games. And then Man United fans think that's because they didn't have a pre-season and therefore they didn't have time to prepare for this season going ahead. So if that's a theory you're going to think about, all of a sudden they've lost 1 game in the time they've had their squad fully fit and transfers done and everyone in.
To Arsenal, though. And this is what I would say, they're inconsistent. If they want to win the league, they shouldn't be losing to Arsenal. I know it's a one-off game, but I look at it and I think Man City and Liverpool don't lose that game. And not just lose it, we played them off the park that day. And it can happen.
But then this season, Liverpool have drawn to Fulham, Newcastle.
Away from home, they've been patchy. I agree, they've been patchy. All I'm saying is...
I'd say, Man United's biggest threat is actually Man City, because Man City look...
Yeah, they could be. Man City are ominous, and if you watch that, I don't know if you saw the League Cup game between them, which I was going to reference as well.
Yeah.
You just saw that Man United's approach to that game compared to how they beat them last season. So it's really difficult to kind of say you preferred their approach this season when they lost the game 2-0, when they did the double over them last season. I actually preferred their approach this season in terms of they were more proactive. They took the game to them more. And okay, it didn't come off. And Man City are a better team. They're further ahead in their project. If Man City play better, and Man City have the capability to play better than Man United on the day, and if they do, then they'll win the game. And they did win the game. But if you're a Man United fan, I think you're probably encouraged by the fact that you're at least taking the game to them a bit more. I know they won the 2 games last season, and they played some really good stuff in the first half an hour in that game at the Etihad. But a lot of it relied on taking the lead and sitting back and being really solid in defence and countering, which, can work, but it's a specialist tactic. Them actually taking the game to Man City shows that they have progressed in that time, and it's encouraging. However, they still lost the game 2-0. And so when I'm looking at Man City, who look ominous at the moment, you look at that first half an hour at Stamford Bridge.
I look at their defence. Their defence looks unreal.
Defence looks really good, and it's kind of gone under the radar because they've had a few easy home games against, like Newcastle, and they beat Fulham, and they beat Burnley, but Ruben Diaz has been excellent. I watched him in his first or second game we played them, and he played and they kept a clean sheet, and he was just superb. And
the teams you've named there of Burnley, I can see Man United.
And Liverpool have been slipping up to them.
Yeah,
I know. I agree.
There's no guarantee.
You've got to get it done, and I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, it went under the radar because they were just quietly they had a few Saturday 3:00 games, which might have been part of it as well. They just went under the radar. They chugged along, won their games, and now when everyone's slipping up a bit and they've got the games in hand, you can just see them sort of creeping up the table. And I think it's one of those where if they take the lead in this title race, it's very difficult to see them relinquishing it. And they're big winners from the Christmas break, you've got to say.
Yes, of course. On the flip side of it, there are some bloody big losers.
There are some losers.
Frank Lampard. And I tell you what...
Where else to start?
No, Tottenham. Tottenham have done terribly over the...
You think Tottenham?
They've got less points since the 14th of December than Chelsea. Tottenham, in that time, have got...
they had that week, didn't they, where they took 1 point from 9. Yeah.
Why have people not... They lost Liverpool, Leicester, drew to Wolves, drew to Crystal Palace, had their Fulham game suspended, but because they beat Leeds, everyone's like, it's not a problem, and because it's Mourinho a bit.
They haven't really... Okay, so they lost to Liverpool, which, you expect. You could probably say the only really bad result in there is losing at home to Leicester 2-0, the way they did. The other ones are away games, you can draw them. But if I'm a Tottenham fan, I'm concerned at the way they're giving up these games, where they're taking the lead early, they took the lead in the first minute against Wolves, and then didn't play football for 90 minutes against a team that is missing their talisman in Raul Jimenez and aren't creating many chances and scoring many goals this season in any case.
And I'd also say...
They've scored 18 goals in 17 games this season.
Since the Arsenal game...
It's not like they're free scoring.
Since the Arsenal game, Tottenham have got 5 points out of a possible 15. And people are saying they're still title challengers. I don't get it. Like...
I don't think so.
I'm annoyed that they don't get more questions.
You're right. It's gone under the radar because that stat you've just given me there, even me, and I'm going to be more critical of Spurs because I'm biased. But even I didn't realise it was that poor. And obviously the game against Fulham got called off. It's been rearranged for next week. But yeah, I suppose it's because they've not been losing games and it's not been as high profile. Whereas Chelsea obviously have lost 3 or 4 games in that period, and
but since the 14th of December, they're 14th in the league on as many points as Brighton and Chelsea in that time. Like, what? Why? Give them criticism. Give Mourinho criticism.
Oh mate, you're preaching to the converted. I'll happily give Spurs some criticism.
And it's not even like the underlying number. Chelsea's underlying numbers are way better than Tottenham's right now.
Yeah.
In that time,
different teams aren't they the way they play? But you're right with Spurs. They just.
If you're going to take the piss out of Lampard and say he should be sacked,
but you could argue, Rob. You could argue that they're just regressing to the mean, Tottenham Hotspur, with regards to these games. So they were winning them earlier in the season by the odd goal, and Kane and Son were putting the ball in the back of the net. Let me ask you this: have the performances changed that much, if at all, in any of those games?
You can't rely on Son and Kane to outperform that XG for the entire season. And
the way they've approached the games, and I'd say even the way they've played in them. You take the Man United game out of the equation; they played really well that day, but there was kind of a lot that went in their favour in terms of the way the game panned out and the shambolic nature of Man United and the red card.
And
there's a lot that went their way, and they were really good. And they honestly, if I was a Tottenham fan, I'd be buzzing, and I'd love to see us go to a Big Six team and beat them 6-1. But okay, take that out of the equation, and the rest of their performances this season, I honestly think you could say have been really similar. They beat Southampton 5-1, I suppose, is the other one. But then all the other games.
But even still in that Southampton game, Southampton could have been out of sight in the first half.
You're right. It should have been 2 or 3. Yeah. And I look at their performances, and I think they've got 2 talisman up front who are just clinical and on their day. Tottenham on their day can beat anyone. They can beat any side because of the fact that they've got those 2 up front, and their defensive structure, by and large, is pretty good. I know they've been pretty poor from set pieces recently, and a bit sort of giving up a few cheap goals, but by and large they get into a good shape, and they can play with a lead. What's changed, I suppose, is they've been playing with a 1-goal lead in quite a few of these games, and they've given up goals, or they've gone behind. So they went behind at Liverpool, and they went behind against Leicester.
Yeah.
And you take 1 point from those 2 games.
Oh, they didn't take any.
Well, no, you're right. Sorry, they didn't take any points.
So
you score 1 goal.
But
so I agree with you.
Why I'm annoyed is because in the start of the season, everyone's like Kane and Son. Mourinho's second season, he's got this great record where he always finishes first and on the time.
Yeah, but it's a silly comparison, isn't it? Because you could argue that many of those teams he had in his second year, bar maybe the Man United one in 17-18, they were complete as sides. He'd always had that first year where he'd kind of assessed what he had. He'd brought some players to the forefront of his thinking, and he'd kind of put the others aside. And then in that transfer window, you think of that Chelsea team where he gets Costa and he gets Fabregas, and suddenly they went from, you know, a sort of challenger to a lock in for top 4 to the favourites in that window. The side he had with Chelsea in his first spell, best team in the country by far by the time he got to his second year. The Inter Milan team the same. The Real Madrid team, okay, you're competing with Barcelona, but you've got some world-class players. This Tottenham team is by no means complete in its project. You've got Son and Kane. You've got a couple of other promising players, but they've still got a lot of weaknesses.
What Mourinho's done is he's changed the conversation from Tottenham's poor form to Dele Alli being a bit of a cunt. Like
he's clever. He knows what to say in these press conferences to kind of. It's deflection tactic.
Yeah,
let's be honest about it. It's a deflection tactic. You might argue that game against Fulham, okay, they might have won it, but it's also given it getting called off. It gave him a chance to get on his Instagram and start whinging to the Premier League and about how much of a shambles it is. That becomes the talking point rather than the 4 or 5 previous games.
Or then play Marine. That's another talking point.
You're right. The narrative has changed. I think Tottenham have been poor compared to the standards they've set, even if the performances haven't been that different. But you got to talk about Chelsea. Chelsea are the obvious example. We've gone from, I think, if we'd lost to Chelsea, we would have been, I want to say 11 points behind them.
Yeah, something mad. It's now 3, isn't it?
Because we won 3 out of 3 and they drew. So they picked up 1 point out of 9. We picked up 9. Suddenly we're 3 points behind them. Yeah. So it would have been 11 points behind. It's mad how the narrative changes. It really is. It's gone from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to get sacked to Mikel Arteta is going to get sacked to now Frank Lampard's going to be sacked. And actually, of the 3, you would definitely say the most likely to go first now at this moment in time, given the club he's at and their previous history of managers and not giving them time, and if they sort of underperform expectations, Lampard looks the most vulnerable to losing his job. There's even been articles on The Athletic.
Yeah,
Goose will love me mentioning The Athletic.
I do think
about options.
I think the issue is in the transfer window there was a disconnect. Gravisky, she does a great job in getting lots of money for the players they sell. However, there was a disconnect between the scouting network that suggests all these great players and the tactic that Lampard wanted to play. Because Kai Havertz never played on the right at Leverkusen, maybe like for 3 games or something.
Did he play as a box-to-box either, or how he's been playing for Chelsea? He never did. I thought he was a 10.
He was a shallow striker behind Volans.
Yeah, he scored goals, right? I mean, he got 12 goals, set them up.
8 assists, yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. Like when I look at him, I think he's been used poorly. Werner, I've been quite critical of him. I think there's a lot that he needs to improve at to kind of make it at the Premier League level. But you could argue the same with him. He can play off the left, but it's not his best position. You're not going to get the best out of him there.
But then you look at Abraham and go, Abraham put up great numbers last year. Why sign Werner? And then
it doesn't make sense to sign Werner to play on the left when you've got Christian Pulisic to play there. And you've brought Hakim Ziyech to play off the right, and you've got Havertz doesn't play there, but he can play there as well. So you're not going to play Werner there.
And you've got players like Hudson-Odoi who would easily slot into any other top 16.
It really it kind of just seems like with Chelsea, it was a bit of a trolley dash. It was kind of like, we'll have this, and they're a really promising youngster. We'll have them, and we'll throw a Kai Havertz in, and a Hakim Ziyech, and a Ben Chilwell. I think Ben Chilwell's been pretty good by and large. But my point is that it's difficult to know how these targets were identified and ultimately who had the decision in buying them. Was it Lampard driving it, or was it the scouting department?
No, it was what's her name? Karina Gavin.
So
what's her name?
What her role? What's her role at Chelsea?
She's sporting
director of football.
Yeah,
sporting director. So as you said, there's a disconnect, right?
She gets the last say on it. Fucking what's her name?
This ultimately might be what gets him sacked.
Yeah,
because you can't sign players like that for that amount of money, and it's not just one; it's like 3 or 4. He's probably not getting the best out of. Werner and Havertz are obviously the high-profile ones. Ziyech's been a bit injured, so maybe it's a bit unfair. But the point is, he's not getting the best out of them, and that might be kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back with regards to his job, where they turn around and they go, "We gave you a £50 million striker and a £75 million number 10. You've got no excuse, plus a £50 million left mid and a £35 million right wing."
Barkley, who's now doing great things at Villa for you.
you could argue that they thinned the squad for him and they got in the targets that would take them to that next level. Not necessarily winning the league, but being in the conversation like Man United are, like Tottenham were maybe a few weeks ago. Maybe you could say Chelsea were a few weeks ago. But they've regressed so sharply. It's such a dip in form. It's really worrying.
I'll tell you why you sack him now, because Jesse Mars isn't a big job yet. Marco Rosa might go to Dortmund, but if you can get him, that's great. Hasenhüttl, I'd take him from Southampton. There's really good. Tuchel's doesn't have a job, so he's going to be the one that's touted.
Chelsea look to be eyeing him up as well. But it's all timing with football managers, isn't it? Like you've just said, it kind of sometimes when you sack a manager can be decided by what goes on at other clubs. It's mad, but like Paris Saint-Germain sacking Tuchel just before Christmas may well be a big part in Chelsea moving on Lampard in the not too distant future. And while the two things you wouldn't necessarily expect to be directly linked, you look at it and you think if they're looking to get their man there while he's available and on the market, you might just have to sort of end the Lampard project early. I mean, I always thought the job came too soon for him, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
And I think if they, if you speak to guys close to the club and some of the articles you read about it, not a chance in hell he gets that job if they're not under the transfer embargo. If they're not under the transfer embargo,
or he's called Frank Lampard.
But even like I mean Lampard when he gets the job at the start of the
if he's not called Frank Lampard.
Oh yeah, if he's not called Lampard, yeah. And absolutely, but I think even then he wouldn't get it because it was a case of okay, we're under a transfer embargo, we're not going to be able to spend this year. We need someone to come in who understands the culture of the club and can ultimately get the best out of the youth, and can instill the sort of mentality that we want to take forwards. And you might say, okay, he's a Chelsea man, as we keep getting told.
Rory Jennings,
yeah,
Chelsea man. But
he looks like a bit of a prat, doesn't he? Now putting himself about, telling us about what all of Arsenal's problems are, and then all of a sudden we're 3 points behind them. Yeah.
Okay.
If I was
here's my question for you: we'll go through the squad now. Which of these players, as either yes or no, has Lampard improved?
Yeah, go for it.
So N'Golo Kante. No. Werner, no. Mount, yes.
Yeah, Mount's better.
Zuma,
Mount wasn't. You can't compare him to anything at Premier League level. Is the only thing I'd say.
Zuma, I'd say
Zuma
yes.
looks better, but again, Zuma, you'd sort of asterisk that with, he's a few years older and he's got a better partner in Thiago Silva next to him. So there's kind of mitigating factors there as well, I'd say.
Chilwell's numbers are the exact same as they were last season.
Difficult to say.
Hudson-Odoi, no, he's made him worse. Pulisic,
he just doesn't play enough.
Exactly. Pulisic, probably yes. Kai Havertz, no.
Pulisic, I didn't really watch much of at Dortmund, so I can't judge. He's been good for Chelsea, but I think he's just a good player.
So what happened at Dortmund was he was playing really well, but he wasn't getting the goals and assists. So Jadon Sancho came in, and then he got pushed to the bench, and then from there.
Difficult again, because he's not played at this level before, but yeah.
Kovacic, not really. Jorginho, no. Cesar Azpilicueta, no. He's the first manager since whoever to basically sack him off. Ziyech,
no.
Ziyech's been a really good player in the Champions League for ages. So when he came in and started doing really well,
I still think the sample size is too small. How many 90 minutes has Ziyech played? Probably less than 5 or 6.
He's played less than 500 minutes, so it's clearly not enough.
There you go.
Christensen, not really. Giroud, I don't know why you play.
Yeah, I'll maybe give him that one.
Okay.
But maybe Giroud's another one. He's out of contract in the summer.
Yeah. What's the point in improving him?
Giroud's out,
Kepa, no. Marcus Alonso, no. Rudiger, no. Doesn't get any more minutes. And then like the rest of it's like Emerson.
The general consensus there is though that he's not improved many players. You can probably count on one hand if you're being generous.
But then I see Reece James one I skipped over by accident, but he's one he has.
Reece James is probably better, yeah.
But when I see Chelsea fans being like he's good with the youth, someone that pushes Callum Hudson-Odoi out and signs players like Ziyech, and
that's not good for his development, is it?
No,
that you're bringing someone 30-40 million £40 in to play ahead of them.
When you got
your first transfer window,
when you got Tammy Abraham with really good underlying numbers, and you start playing Giroud instead. That's not someone that develops you.
And then you sign Werner. Yeah, it's not, and that's not forward thinking because Giroud's out of contract this summer.
Yeah, it's just
Abraham's under long-term contract. He's a Chelsea product. It doesn't make sense to. I know Giroud's been good. It's difficult to justify dropping a player if they come in and they score goals for you like he has. But from a forward-thinking perspective,
and if you look, and if
bizarre,
the
short-termism involved in that is you can't say he's promoting the youth and then look at that and cite that as an example.
So then you look at the managers around and you look at like a Marco Rose, or even if you can get Nagelsmann, that'd be amazing.
Well, I think he's someone that, from what I've read, they were looking at before. It was either before Sarri or when Sarri came in, or it was when Lampard came in. When they weren't convinced by him. Is the quotes that we used? Weren't convinced by him. Now I think obviously he since has done another year at Hoffenheim and then he's gone to Leipzig.
I'd also say he made Joe Linton worth 44 million. What else? What more do you want?
He did. And I think when you look at it, that might prove to be an error because they might have just missed the boat there. They might have missed the boat with him. It's all timing with football managers, isn't it? Less so with players, but with managers, it's kind of like who's available when you move a manager on. And with Nagelsmann, the time might never be right.
So now, learning from that, you've got to realise, okay, Marco Rose might go to Dortmund. We're going to get him now. We don't miss the Marco Rose boat. We don't miss the Jesse Marsch boat.
You think that there could be a hesitance, though? They're not inexperienced managers, the guys you've talked about, but they haven't had success at the sort of top level that a club like Chelsea expects. Do you think there might be a hesitance to turn towards profiles like that?
Didn't Gladbach finish second in the Champions League group with Real Madrid, Inter?
But what I mean is like winning titles and winning domestic trophies.
If that's
with the squad they've got at the moment, that ownership have not spent that money to be a side that's consistent in the top four. They want to win trophies, whether it's this season, next season, the next few years. They want to win trophies. They want to win Premier Leagues. They want to compete in Europe again. And ultimately, that has to be the aim for any manager that comes in.
But if you've got Marco Rose, who took that Gladbach team from a Europa League 7th place squad to a Champions League squad,
I'm not disagreeing with you. Look, you're preaching to the converted in terms of building a project. What I'm telling you is the short-termism and the modus operandi of Chelsea. We know what it is. We know how they work with managers. You come in, you get 24 months to 2 years. That is 2 years. You get 80 months to 2 years. And if you don't win, then you're out, and you get the next one in.
But the moment Marco Rose came in from Salzburg, that was what he did first year. He literally took Gladbach from finishing 8th, I think it was. They were competing until February, and then they had a bit of a drop down. The lockdown came, so I don't see why he can't, with that squad, which is that Europa League squad, take them to the top, near the top. When he's got a squad that's probably Champions League, if not league winning level, he can do the same thing of taking the step above as well. I don't think you should. The issue is,
I just don't think. I don't think they've proven themselves to be a club that operates that way at any point in their tenure under Roman Abramovich. It's never been the way.
If their attitude was to do that under Lampard, it was the wrong manager to do it under. You've got to do that.
Yeah, I agree. No, absolutely, and I think it's proven to be the wrong decision. If someone like a Nagelsmann was interested in the job at the time, and they went with a Lampard instead because they had doubts over his profile, then you have to say that's a wrong decision, because who has the higher ceiling at this moment of those two?
I'd also say to that as well, what's the alternative? So if you don't go for like a Jesse Marsch, who do you go for instead? Do you go for
I think they'll go for Thomas Tuchel. If they sack Lampard tomorrow, I think they'd appoint Tuchel. I really do.
But then what's the difference between a Tuchel and like a Jesse Marsch or a Marco Rose?
Well, Jesse Marsch obviously is a bit of a different profile because he manages in Austria.
Yeah.
He looks like a good manager when you hear him speak and you look at what they've achieved.
Let's literally just say Marco Rose or not Allegri, Tuchel.
Okay, but Tuchel's worked under the pressures of a huge club with huge expectations at PSG. You might not say he was successful, but he won titles there. He took him to the Champions League final, and he's worked with those expectations. It was a bit similar when we got Emery. I had doubts about it, and it didn't go right, but you could justify the appointment because of his CV. And I think it's the same with someone like Tuchel compared to someone like a Marco Rose, where he hasn't yet worked under those sort of pressures and expectations that Tuchel had. PSG are a pretty similar club to Chelsea in terms of those expectations. If not, they have bigger expectations. If you don't compete for the Champions League, you're gone.
Yeah.
And he got to a final, and it sounds like he fell out with the hierarchy. And I don't think it would be a long-term appointment, but I look at that and I think that's a Chelsea appointment. That's a come in, 2 years, win the league. Thanks very much. On to the next.
See,
I can see it happening.
I don't. Maybe the issue is, as a football fan and as a guy that likes football, I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think
it isn't. It is. Look.
So when someone goes,
I am just presenting to you
the thinking,
the evidence, and the sort of the backing for how Chelsea have previously made decisions like this in the past. The weight of evidence is there. We've seen what they do with regards to hiring and firing managers, and I just don't see why it would be any different. Even if they've gone down this route, with a club legend, and they want to present it as, we want him to build a legacy, right? They're potentially going to look at it and think he's struggling in his second year. They're going to get rid of him, and what are they going to do after that failed experiment? They're going to revert back to tried and tested with how they've been run before. That's what I think.
Yeah, I can see an Allegri coming in as well, but then I just think
Allegri could as well. Allegri's another one.
But then I just think, why waste? Why go through the high? Because it's really high risk, is what it is, of hoping that in 2 years' time, when your manager flops and you have to sack him, there's one ready and waiting. And if they get lucky with Tuchel, fair enough. But if you really want to build a project like Liverpool have with Klopp, Man City trying to do with Pep,
still think Klopp had a better. Well, Klopp did. You can't argue it. He had a better resume.
Oh yeah.
The guys you're talking about now. He had a stronger backing. He'd gone to Champions League final. He'd won 2 league titles. You couldn't argue with it. You could not argue with Klopp.
But then there's not a Klopp in the market right now.
No, there isn't. And that is part of the problem. Is you sometimes beggars can't be choosers. When you sack a manager, it's not just like, okay, well, we're just going to go and pluck Guardiola, or we're going to go and pluck Jurgen Klopp. Like, it kind of does. Sacking a manager will often depend on who's available and who you think you can get in, and they'll be looking. I mean, it's been rumored they're looking at it already. So
yeah, I mean, a little bit.
They'll be making a contingency plan.
A little bit. We would love to see someone like Thomas Frank just from Brentford straight to Chelsea. That'd be amazing. I think they'd do well. Or I just think I look at that's my issue right now with Lampard. It was when I remember when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer first got the job for Man United, and I was like, that name's been plucked out of nowhere. Why? Because I just look and just go, these people are at smaller jobs, working harder. Because we talked about developing youth earlier. If you're at a small club, to stay afloat, you have to develop youth so you can sell it on, because you haven't got the money to keep going. Brentford develop youth. Thomas Frank's part of that. So when I look at that squad and go, okay, if you drop, I mean, Thomas Frank's a bad example because he's only been in the Championship. But if you put a Thomas Frank into that, he would develop the youth, and he'd get more out of that team. And I think he'd
develop youth, mate. I think it's a complete myth that Chelsea want to develop youth. This narrative only stemmed. They have a really good youth academy, right? But how many of their prospects do you see in their starting 11 constantly on a week in, week out basis? Or how many did you see until the transfer embargo?
None. Christensen, but then he was shit.
Right? And they didn't. He was poor, and also they didn't have great options there anyway. If they did, he wouldn't play, and then this transfer embargo comes on them, and they're forced to find internal solutions to it.
They said after spending 100.
That's when this narrative started.
They still spent 100 million that year, but
yeah.
Which is ridiculous, because that's more than Bolton will ever spend ever. And the idea that they didn't spend any money, but they still got Kovacic and Pulisic in.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate the narrative around Chelsea, because it feels like people are more protective over it compared to a small club. If any other club got a transfer embargo, still spent 40 million, everyone would be like, wow, they didn't really have a transfer embargo, yada yada yada. But I think because maybe Chelsea fans are really vocal.
No, I don't understand where the sympathy for them comes from.
And Chelsea fans
I do not understand it, because, as you said, they are really good at selling their rubbish as well. You think about how much rubbish they brought in under Conte, and they've been able to ship out, and they brought in some poor transfers under Sarri as well, and they sort of weed them out eventually.
Yeah.
Look at Arsenal. We signed Mustafi for 30 million. We've been stuck with him for 5 fucking years. They would have got rid of him after 1, just because of the way they're able to be run and able to spend money.
They got 60 million from Morata.
It's ludicrous. It's 30. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. we'd still have him playing every week if he was at Arsenal. So yeah, I mean, if you're Chelsea, it's easy for you to just get rid of the rubbish because obviously part of it comes with being ruthless and efficient in terms of getting rid of players, but part of it is also that they can afford to dip into the transfer market, find solutions to it, and then be able to sell them. A lot of clubs don't have that luxury, and so I don't have any sympathy for them. And
Chelsea
I hope we finish above them.
Yeah, that'd be so funny because
that'd be great.
The amount of stick and there's. Can I just say I never found this out, but since I've been on the internet properly, there's a lot of Chelsea fans that chat a lot of shit. I saw someone say Reece James is the best right back in the league right now. Get in the bin. Like,
mate, the way Tierney went round him for that first goal we scored, I mean, Christ.
Yeah.
Best right back in the league.
João Cancelo, maybe.
He looks good.
He looks so good. Speaking of which, just as a quick point before we move on to our predictions for the midweek games, who's going to win the league?
City.
Shit, I was going to say City as well.
They're the smart bet at the moment.
They're the bookies'
I'd rather Liverpool win it than City. I know you don't like Liverpool, but I think as a club,
I don't like Liverpool fans. I quite like Liverpool.
I just think you should want a club like Liverpool to win the league more than a club like City, even though they have a great team and I like Guardiola and the football they play and the way they've got to that position. When you compare it to the way Liverpool got to that position, it's night and day what you choose when you choose between them. So I think City at the moment look the smart option because they're coming into some form and the defence looks good. Liverpool are struggling a little bit. Obviously, they've got Man United this weekend, and that'll sort of be a big indicator for. We might have to do. There's 6 midweek games, so I don't know if you want to do the weekend predictions as well.
We can do them all. We'll just zip through them.
We'll rattle through. But that'll be a big indicator.
Mine is going to be after all the time I spent backing Ollie, and I just think the shock of people will be like.
You're going to say Man United.
We spent all year.
Just so you can say you were right.
We spent all year. We spent 2 years slating Ollie. I need to win the league. Yeah, Man United.
We'll see how they do at Anfield. Well, and against us. If they take 4 points from playing Liverpool away and then us as we're coming into some form away from home, you have to take them seriously at that point. If not now, if they take 4 points from those 2 games, you take them seriously. If they win them both, then I'm worried.
If they get points at Anfield, holy shit.
Yeah. So if they lose them both, it kind of goes the other way. You go, well, yeah, they're finally playing some hard away games, but at the moment, they're in the conversation.
Anyway,
predictions. Let's do it.
I'll cut this bit out because I forgot to get it up. So, first one is the We Play Shit Football, Sheffield United v Newcastle.
Ugh.
6 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Yeah, it is. It was funny, they mentioned it in the commentary in the FA Cup on Saturday. Newcastle, quick turnaround for them, and they went 120 minutes. They made changes, but you think, half of those players will at least play some part in the game at Sheffield United.
I think Sheffield
United are poor. It's the Sheffield United handicap.
See, the one thing I think is Sheffield United can't... If they're going to win a game, it's Newcastle at home. So
yeah, look, they're down, right? Let's be honest about it. But if you don't win this, then you're really down. If you can't win these sorts of games, you're not going to win any. Because you look at Newcastle, okay, they're going to come. They'll be quite well organised, but they're not going to offer that much of a threat, And so you're looking at that thinking, right, we just need to break them down, and we win the game. But I don't think they've got the quality, and I think it will be a draw.
Yeah, Sheffield United. McGoldrick hat-trick. If that happens, fair play to me. Burnley v Man United. I see a little bit... I've just said Ollie's going to win the league, but a little bit more to predict Burnley because of their great record against Man United.
Yeah, but it's at Old Trafford, they have that great record.
Is it? Oh, right. Oh, it's Man United.
But the game's not at Old Trafford, but at Old Trafford. I think at Burnley, Man United have won every season. But at Old Trafford, Burnley have not lost. And
Man United this season have the equal best away record with Leicester. So,
yeah, because they haven't lost in the away game. They drew at Leicester and they've won every other one. Leicester must have played more away games, right?
I think so.
Leicester lost to Liverpool.
Leicester have got a better record, but they played 9
more games.
And Man United are 3 points behind, but they played 7.
Yeah.
So,
I think also they've they've not had easy away games, but they've not played any of the big teams away from home yet. And if they still have the best away record at the end of the season, then they'll be close. I think they'll be close. If you have the best away record at the end of the season, you're always in the conversation. I think they will. I think they'll win that. Yeah.
Wolves v Everton. Wolves are going under the radar of having a shit year.
They are, aren't they? As I said, 18 goals they've scored this season.
That's
18 goals in 17 games.
And I mean, they've been linked to Diego Costa, which is
they need a striker. I look at that kid they've got, Fabio Silva. Doesn't look ready. Look, he shouldn't be getting. I think that it's difficult because you bring in a 17-year-old. You don't expect your star man and your star striker to get a fractured skull and be out of action indefinitely. And so, look, you can't legislate for him having played as many minutes as he has. I think it's a poor development plan from them to not have someone else that can play there as well. Really, they play Traore there a bit, but often it's him, and he just doesn't. He doesn't look ready yet. He doesn't look ready. He's probably a good prospect, but he shouldn't be playing.
And
they just don't look like they've got enough goals.
My worry would be Jimenez's XG is 0.26, so he gets a goal in every 4 if you go off expected goals. So even if he comes back,
they don't create a lot. They don't create a lot. If you watch them, they're well organised as they usually are. They've conceded, I think, 24 goals, so sort of middle of the pack for defensive record. But
they cross the ball a lot. But
they cross the ball a lot, and they haven't got the man in there to head the ball in. So I think Everton a bit patchy. Everton are a bit patchy. Every time you think they're doing well, they throw in a
they don't have DCL either.
1-0 loss at home. Yeah, DCL's out.
So I bet I still think Everton because
I'll go with Wolves.
Man City v Brighton. Brighton needs to fucking win a game.
Man City, mate, fantasy football is going to be an absolute bloodbath for these midweek games because I already had 4 players that weren't playing in midweek. I had 3 Villa players who were playing in midweek, but now aren't playing in midweek because of the COVID outbreak. And I've used 3 transfers, so I've got 6 players available. So this was before the Villa news. I brought in 3 players, so I then had 9 available. And then obviously the 3 Villa players are out, so I've got 6 available, and I've used points to do transfers. It's not good for me.
I've free hit for this.
So the only thing that can save me is a Man City masterclass. De Bruyne, Sterling, and Cancelo need to do business for me.
Yeah, if Diaz want to pop something goal as well,
I think they will. I think they'll beat Brighton. Yeah.
Come on, Brighton, fucking win! But I still think Man City win. Spurs v Fulham. Fulham win 2-0. Fuck me. Fulham look really good as well. Fulham could easily beat.
Fulham went to extra time though. I feel a bit sorry for Fulham because they went to extra time against.
Didn't they play a bunch of kids though?
QPR. Sorry.
Didn't they play? They didn't. I didn't think they played the first team.
Oh, I don't know. But what I was going to say is they've got Tottenham now, and then they've got Chelsea at the weekend. So this Tottenham game's been a bit hastily arranged, and then they've got it 3 days before Chelsea at home. So. You could argue that they got the game against Tottenham called off.
So
the time of that game, whenever it was called off,
but the time it gets put in, yeah.
But it's been put in now. It's a bit short notice. You can see why they're a bit unhappy about it. I don't like to say it, but I think Tottenham will win.
No,
I think Fulham are just not good enough at the back.
Yeah,
they're better. They're better than they were at the start of the season.
And Arsenal v Crystal Palace. Now we talk about FPL. I've got Lacazette, Smith.
Yeah, I brought Lacazette in. Lacazette in. And Tierney, I brought Lacazette and Tierney in. Yeah,
nice. Smith rates out 4.4.
Oh, he's a good option for what he's worth on there because he's going to get a lot of game time. And we don't have a number 10 yet. I'm not sure whether we're going to dip into the market, but at the moment, he's one of the first names on the team sheet. And so, if you're looking for someone that's going to get regular minutes and always going to play, and is cheap,
he's your guy.
You usually have to get a cheap option either as one of your strikers or in midfield. He's a good one.
Yeah. I think you'll win
game. I think we'll win. I expect to win. I'm always wary of jinxing these things. But I think the form we've been on, Palace have been really patchy all season. You got to be wary of their counter. But I think Partey should be back by all accounts, and I think we should expect to win that. The form we're in.
Nice. Do you want to go through next week's games?
Let's do the weekend ones.
Sure.
Let's do the weekend one. Wolves won't record before them.
Wolves v West Brom.
Wolves.
West Brom won't win a game ever again.
No, they're shit. They are losers of the Christmas break, by the way.
Sam Allardyce.
If it's possible for a team to get a point at Anfield and still be losers, They've played 3 home matches. They've lost 3-0, 5-0, and 4-0.
Sam Allardyce passed it. That's coming from a Bolton fan.
Mate, I was surprised when we played them. They weren't even well organised. I thought the one thing you're going to get, there's not going to be much quality, but they'll be hard to break down. They were so open. I don't know what the hell they were doing.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, they'll lose. They're shit.
Leeds v Brighton. Brighton win, please. 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 Don't go down, Brighton.
Leeds will win 5-0 or lose 4-1.
Nice.
I'm going to go with a draw.
West Ham v Burnley. West Ham win. Amazon Prime.
West Ham Burnley.
Well, no. To be fair, Burnley on a bit of form actually. So
yeah, they're just sort of doing that. They're getting out of trouble. Burnley,
they're doing a Burnley.
Yeah, and all set up by that dreadful performance at Arsenal when they somehow managed to win the game 1-0 from an own goal. Yeah, I think they'll get a draw. They're just doing their. I predict a lot of draws here.
Fulham v Chelsea. Fulham again. To Derby.
I think it'd be funny if they did. Chelsea need to win a game. They got Leicester. Right? You see, that's a game as well. They got Leicester the game after that. It's one of those where you might have one eye on the game to come.
If Lampard loses it, he's sacked, by the way. I think at least.
Do you think?
Yeah. One game away.
I think if he lost both of them, he'd be sacked. I think if he loses one and wins the other, he'll sort of carry on. I think they'll win that. Although it'd be funny if they didn't.
Oh, it would be. Leicester v Southampton.
Two good teams.
The overachiever derby.
Few good sides, yeah.
Leicester, because Leicester's underlying numbers are better. That's
Leicester are a bit patchy at home, though. I keep saying it's my favourite word to say, patchy, but they're not consistent at home. Their away record's great. If they could replicate that at home, where you think their fixtures have been easier as well, they play a lot of the big teams away.
Yeah.
And yet at home they've lost to Fulham, they lost to Aston Villa 3-0. And they lost to Everton. They've been inconsistent at home.
Leicester can still win the league.
They could, and I think what I'm saying is, if had they won those games, they'd be right in the conversation. I can't predict another draw, can I? I think Leicester will win.
Yeah. Villa v Everton.
So many tight games. Yeah, that could be draws.
Villa look fucking amazing.
Villa do look good. I'm going to go with I'll go.
I'm now convinced.
Presuming that game goes ahead and they've got players back in.
I'm now convinced Villa. Maybe Champions League.
They look good. They look like a team that. Okay, I don't think their depth's great. If they had a few injuries, I think they'd really struggle. But I think their first 11, it just looks like it works. It's a well-oiled machine. Everyone knows their roles. They've got the fluidity up front. If they get Barkley back in the team, that's a bonus for them as well. And it's a case of if they can keep everyone fit, then they've got a good chance of putting together a really good season. I think.
Yeah, I can see them in Europe.
Yeah, definitely.
Sheffield United v Spurs. Sheffield United.
Sheffield United. They got that.
Sheffield United. Back-to-back wins.
Fuck it, I'm doing it as well. Sheffield United. I'm doing it.
Liverpool v Man United. Man United away from home.
Corker of a game, this, isn't it? Liverpool won't have played in the league, whereas Man United will have.
Yeah, Liverpool are just inferior in Anfield. Although. Are they?
You can't. I think until they lose at home, you can't predict them to lose at home. It's one of those things you just don't expect anyone to go there and win.
A draw.
Man United really could. Man United are a team that could go there and win.
I'd say
I don't expect them to.
I say they're the best set to get a win at Anfield.
At the moment, you'd say Man City maybe on the day could go there and just outplay them and expose that back line, but you'd say that Manchester United have got a fighting chance. I think it'll be a close game, but I'm just going to side with Liverpool at the moment.
Man City v Crystal Palace. Man City. 8-0.
Yeah, man, I hope so.
12-0.
Fantasy football, man.
Yeah.
We'll grind them down. Man City will get Palace when they're knackered from again.
And finally, Arsenal.
Newcastle, isn't it? Yeah. Got the Geordies again. They gave us a good game in that FA Cup. They gave us a bit of a fright.
0-0.
0-0. I hate predicting Arsenal to win both games because I just feel like they'll let me down. The thing is, Newcastle are so poor. They don't do any attacking, and yet we still managed to nearly lose it.
Yeah. Andy Carroll missed some fucking sitters.
Look, he missed 2, really. I'm going to predict us to win because I just think you have to expect to win that game as an isolated if you take the fact that we've won 3 in a row, and if we beat Palace, we'd have won 4 in a row. Take that out of it, and that should provide form. But I think with Arsenal, we're always prone to a hiccup.
Yeah.
Take that out of it. As an isolated game, we're better than Newcastle, and they don't offer much of a threat on the counter. So we should expect to win it. So I'm going to predict us to win, but I will asterisk it with I wouldn't be shocked if we slip up in one of these 2 games.
Yeah, there's a reason no team's gone 5 wins in a row.
No, exactly.
Anyway, thank you for listening to Just Another Football Podcast. Welcome back from Christmas. Hope you all had a good one. Hope 2021's better. Enjoy yourselves.